Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my channel? Thank you so much. Some things in life you never think will happen to you, not in a million years. You hear the stories, maybe you see them in movies, and in your head the same thing keeps echoing. That happens to other people, not to me. But life sometimes, in a weird way, takes that safe little thought you have and shatters it. That day at the farm became a turning point in my life I'll never forget. Now let me give you some background. I'm Ava, I'm 55, and a few years ago I lost my husband, James. He was the love of my life. His absence still gnaws at me, but you learn to keep living eventually. Well, at least you try. Luckily, my daughter Mia has always been there for me. Mia is my pride and joy. She's 33, smart, beautiful, and determined. She's a dedicated engineer and has found her own path in life. Mia's husband, Wesley, also seems like a great guy. He's 40, handsome, and a successful engineer. He's known for his love for his family, always supporting Mia and his calming presence. Wesley's been married to Mia for 5 years, and to be honest, I've never had a reason to doubt him. But sometimes, the most jarring moments in life start exactly when everything seems perfect. It all started a few weeks ago. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, so I can share more fascinating real stories. Watch this video till the end because this story is going to be insanely interesting. I decided to head to the family's old farmhouse. The farm wasn't just property to me. It was a place filled with memories from my childhood. It's been a bit neglected lately, but it's still a treasure to me. James and I used to visit all the time, but after his passing it's kind of been left alone. So I decided it was time to fix up the old house and its surroundings. I invited Mia and Wesley along. A little vacation, some work, and some family time. It all started off so normally. When Mia and Wesley arrived at the farmhouse, they were as kind and cheerful as always. Wesley always seemed ready to help, and that day was no different. But that weekend, within the quiet walls of the old farmhouse, something happened that I never expected. Some things happen slowly at first. You don't notice, a small glance, a silence that lasts a bit too long, or some unexplained tension. Oh, but that weekend, there was something off about Wesley's behavior. It's hard to explain. From the outside, someone might not have noticed, but I did. First, it just felt like discomfort. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe my loneliness was playing tricks on me. But no, my instincts weren't wrong. That weekend, something between Wesley and me shifted, turning a simple family gathering into something way more than that. It's hard to put into words, even harder to explain, but I can tell you this. For the first time in my life, I regretted going back to that farmhouse because that day, something happened that changed everything. That morning, the farm was never-ending work. Mia was busy sanding the old chairs. The other side of the porch, every now and then she'd call out to Wesley and ask him something, but Wesley would just give short answers and turn away. Meanwhile, I decided to wipe down the bookshelf inside, which was covered in dust. The old books, the cracked shelves, the marks of time were everywhere. "Mom, is everything okay?" Mia called from the porch. I waved at her through the window and yelled back, "Everything's fine, sweetie." It really was fine, or at least it seemed that way. But just then Wesley walked in. He was wearing a gray t-shirt, hands in his pockets, with that usual confident air of his. He stopped in the doorway, his eyes on me. "You're really getting into this, Ava," he said with a smile. "Someone has to," I said, shrugging lightly as I put an old book back on the shelf. While the dust motes danced in the sunlight, my eyes landed on the top shelf. It must have been years since it was last cleaned. I dragged over the ladder and propped it up in front of the bookshelf. Wesley, instead of leaving, just stood there in the middle of the room. As I climbed the ladder, I muttered to myself, "I'm going to have to stretch a bit higher, but it'll be fine." I was wearing a light skirt that day, and having Wesley standing below me started to make me uncomfortable. I tried to focus on the top steps of the ladder, keeping my attention away from him. But when I glanced down for just a second, I felt his eyes on me. As I reached for the dusty books on the top shelf, Wesley's voice suddenly rose from below. "Hold on, Ava. Let me hold the ladder to make sure it's safe." "No need, Wesley. It's solid," I said, but by then he was already underneath it. His hands were on both sides of the ladder, almost like he was protecting me. My discomfort grew, but I couldn't find the words to say anything. As I reached for the books in the top corner of the shelf, the fact that Wesley was still holding the ladder, even though there was no need for it, started to unsettle me. It was like he was watching my every move. His hands were still tightly gripping the ladder, but I could feel his gaze fixed on me. When I finally placed the last book back, I muttered, "All right, job's done." My hands were still covered in dust, and I was eager to get down quickly. As I descended one step at a time, Wesley's eyes seemed to follow my every movement. When I reached the last step, we were face to face. "You did a great job," he said, his voice low and calm, but there was something hidden there. "Oh, just a couple of dusty books," I said, shrugging and trying to laugh it off. But instead of smiling, I got stuck on the look on his face. There was an intensity in his eyes, something I couldn't quite put into words. Maybe I'd never really looked at Wesley this closely before. His features were sharp, but his gaze was way too intense. Suddenly, a wave of warmth washed over me. In that strange moment of silence, I felt a kind of excitement. My heart was beating faster, and it wasn't something I could control. It felt both familiar and uncomfortable, like a mix of curiosity and guilt. Wesley's lips twitched like he was about to say something, but just then Mia's voice called out from outside. "Mom, Wesley, I made tea. We should take a break." With the door opening, Mia walked in. She had a pitcher and a few glasses in her hands. Her energy was as lively as ever, instantly breaking the tension in the room. "Oh, the old bookshelf is finally done," Mia said cheerfully. "Mom, let Wesley help you relax. I'll finish up the sanding and then I'll help." Wesley took a few steps back, turning to Mia with a slight smile. "Ava already did an amazing job. I think she should just take over this whole thing." While Mia laughed at Wesley's comment, I quickly focused on cleaning my hands. The change in the atmosphere was exactly what I needed at that moment, when I had no idea how to deal with that weird energy. But inside, something was stirring. Wesley's gaze, that moment of silence, had left a mark inside me. I heard Wesley jokingly say, "Well, who's making the tea?" But my mind was still scattered, trying to pull myself together. I grabbed the tea tray from Mia's hands and said, "You handle your work outside. I'll take care of the tea." But as I walked toward the kitchen, I couldn't shake off the look on Wesley's face. I was pissed at myself, feeling like this about a son-in-law was just unacceptable. But no matter how much I tried to deny it, I couldn't stop the feeling that had started to sprout inside me. Things on the farm were getting way more complicated than I thought. As I arranged the tea glasses on the tray, I still couldn't escape my thoughts. My hands were shaking, but I blamed it on the exhaustion. "Stop overthinking, Ava," I told myself. But at that moment, I noticed Wesley standing in the kitchen doorway. "Let me help," he said, walking toward me and looking at me. "No need. I've got it under control," I responded a bit too quickly. But Wesley was already next to me. He carefully looked over the glasses, picked one up, and moved toward the kettle. "Did you fill the kettle yourself? I've noticed you make the tea just right," he said, as if it was a casual conversation. But his voice was way too close and soft. "Well, years of practice," I said, trying to smile nervously. We were standing right next to each other. Wesley's arm brushed against mine. It seemed like a small touch, but I was surprised by how my body reacted to it. I stepped back to put the teaspoon in the sink. Just then Wesley moved. I hadn't realized he was right behind me. As I tried to turn, we almost collided. "Oh," I said, losing my balance and leaning into Wesley's chest. His hands instinctively came around my waist, like he was trying to steady me. "Careful," he said, his voice low and somehow different. My eyes couldn't help but lock onto his face. It was just a matter of time. This closeness felt too real, too intimate. "You're still tired, I guess," he added, looking at my face. "No, just spaced out for a second," I mumbled, quickly pulling back. Wesley also stepped back, but the air in the room had completely changed. Trying to calm my racing heart, I grabbed the tray. Right then, Mia's voice came from the living room. "Mom, is the tea ready? Wesley, hurry up. I want to show you a few things." With Mia's voice, everything seemed to go back to normal. Wesley, with a slight smile, said, "Let's not keep Mia waiting." Then, as he headed for the door, he gave me one last glance. As I arranged the glasses on the tray, my hands were still trembling. I had no idea what any of this meant. I wasn't even sure if it meant anything at all, but I could feel that something had changed. I grabbed the tray and made my way to the living room. Mia greeted me with her usual bright smile, and Wesley was sitting next to her, looking like he was fully focused on whatever Mia was saying. But me? I felt like I'd crossed some kind of line, and I didn't even realize it yet. Not yet. The next morning, as Mia walked toward the garden, it was impossible not to notice the excitement on her face. She was wandering among the flowers, gently brushing each one with her hands. "Mom, these flowers are so beautiful. But look, some of them are starting to die. I can't stand seeing them like this," she said, a hint of sadness in her voice. "I haven't been able to take care of them for a few seasons," I admitted. "The farm work and time." Mia stayed quiet for a bit, still looking at the flowers. Then suddenly she turned and said, "I'm going to the city to get some new flowers. I want to bring this garden back to its old self." "Now?" I asked, surprised. "Yep, we'll get it done before the day is over. I'll be back by tonight," she said, heading toward the car. She called out to Wesley to see if he was coming, but Wesley raised his hands and smiled. "I'll stay here. I'll help your mom," he said. Mia gave the garden one last look, then happily jumped into the car and drove off with her. Leaving, the farm sank back into silence. As the day moved toward evening, I sat down by the fireplace and started preparing some firewood. The cool air was creeping inside, and nothing sounded better than a warm fire right now. I lightly adjusted my skirt and crouched down, thoughtfully arranging the pieces of wood in my hands. I was lost in the flames for a moment. I just wanted to forget everything. I didn't even hear the door creak open. But suddenly I jolted at the warm voice that came from behind my shoulder. "You know, as beautiful as this farm is, you're just as beautiful." My breath caught instantly. It was Wesley's voice. I braced my arms on my knees and tried to straighten up, but my movements were slow, like I was frozen in place. "Wesley, you scared me," I said, forcing a nervous smile, still not turning around. Wesley took a few more steps closer. "Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. It's just seeing you like this. I mean, so natural, so different," he said. His voice was soft but strangely intense. I didn't want to turn around to face him. I braced my hands on the fireplace grate, trying to act like I was just tidying up the room. "Come on, Wesley, it's just the state of an old farm. There's nothing on me but dust," I said, trying to laugh, but my voice couldn't hide the strange excitement rising inside me. He stayed there, standing behind me. "I don't think you even realize it," he said, his voice low. "Realize what?" I said, finally sitting up straight and turning slightly to face him. I couldn't avoid his gaze. Wesley's eyes were different from usual, intense, focused, and it felt like he was pushing some kind of boundary. "You're beautiful," he said simply, with a slight smile on his face. "I didn't think you'd be this strong, this impressive." Wesley had come up to me and pulled me toward him by the waist. I was so affected that I started kissing him back immediately. Everything slowed down. It was like time had stopped. All there was Wesley's touch and his gaze. The flames in the fireplace lit up the room, casting a warm light and turning our kisses into a melody. By the time we got to the couch, we were both out of breath, our clothes and underwear scattered on the floor. Wesley's hands were exploring my body, and with every touch, I felt closer to him as his touch was setting the fire inside me ablaze. The bond between us was pulling us even closer. Wesley's eyes were locked on mine, and it felt like we were lost in each other. Every touch, every kiss was making us more connected. The flames from the fireplace made the moment feel even more romantic. After everything, Wesley and I lay side by side on the couch, breathless and naked. Without saying a word for about 30 seconds, all we could hear was each other's breathing. The silence made us feel even closer. Everything felt calm and peaceful, but there was a restlessness inside me. Eventually, without saying anything, I got up and went to take a shower. The cold water brought me back to reality. After getting out of the shower, I still couldn't get myself together. The coldness of the water hadn't done much to wash away the tension from that moment. Even under the shower, Wesley's hands, his gaze, and his words were echoing in my head. The water might have cleaned the dirt off my body, but it couldn't wash away the guilt inside me. I felt dirty, like I had done something wrong. Really, that moment with Wesley felt like all my walls came down, but was it right? Especially with all of this happening while Mia, his daughter, was home. I was filled with those questions that gnawed at me. When I got back to my room, I heard a faint sound from Mia's room, and a weight formed in my chest. My daughter had come home. Mia not saying anything probably meant she had noticed my mood. I wondered what she was thinking, but her silence felt like a sign of trust. In this situation, I knew I should avoid getting too close to her, but how? When Mia went to her bed without saying a word, I took a deep breath. For a moment, I closed my eyes and thought. I thought about how she should never know about my relationship with Wesley. At that moment, the guilt inside me grew even more. A few days went by, and Mia had noticed the weirdness between me and Wesley. She had sensed my tension in the mornings and how Wesley was getting quieter in the evenings. The strange distance between us had raised questions in her mind. One morning at the breakfast table, Mia suddenly asked, "Mom, is there something going on between you and Wesley? You two look a little weird." I took a sip of tea and let out a deep breath. I didn't want to look into my daughter's eyes. The chaos in my mind was only intensifying. The guilt in my chest was overwhelming. "No, Mia," I said, forcing myself to hide the crack in my voice. "Everything's fine. Sometimes people act strange, but this is just a phase." Mia noticed the unease in my eyes, but she believed me. She knew her mom was always strong and in control, so despite the doubt in her eyes, she decided to believe that nothing was wrong. But in that moment, the guilt inside me grew deeper. I couldn't break Mia's trust, but ignoring how I felt was becoming harder with each passing minute. I couldn't ruin the trust one saw in my daughter's eyes, but at the same time, covering up what happened with Wesley was slowly wearing me down. Over time, a distance grew between Wesley and me. Remembering that unforgettable moment had turned into torture for me every single day. The confusion in my mind and heart was getting deeper with each moment. I hadn't said anything to avoid upsetting Mia, but every night when I closed my eyes, I could feel how this secret was eating me up inside. One evening, while sitting alone in the living room of my farmhouse, I asked myself again, should I tell Mia everything, or should I keep it all hidden? There was a void inside me. The fear of losing my daughter and the guilt of knowing what I'd experienced with Wesley was wrong left me powerless to find any answer. I was wrapped up in the feeling that whatever I did, it would be wrong. If you've made it this far, I know my story has deeply affected you. There's so much more to share, and you won't want to miss any of it. Don't forget to hit that follow button, turn on notifications, and leave a comment about this story. I can't wait to hear your thoughts, so let's chat in the comments. Your support means the world to me.